We will be reading about each of them in detail. Breakdown of the key elements. Offer and acceptance. A clear offer must be made by one party and the other party must unequivocally accept it. The acceptance must mirror the terms of the offer. Mirror in the terms they should expressly declare. All the terms of the contracts have to be clearly mentioned and expressly declared by both the parties. One party have to declare and the other party has to understand in the same sense in which the offer has been made. Then only that can be said as a mirror of the terms of the offer. That means how I am looking at a mirror, the same way I also perceive myself. So the same thing here, a clear offer must be made by one party. That means all the terms included, there should be a clear offer made by one party and the other party must unequivocally means he should understand it in the true sense or in the same sense. Accept it. The acceptance must mirror the terms of the offer. That means they should be clearly declaring or they should be clearly stating what all the person is telling, right? The second one is the consideration. As we have already know that something of value must be exchanged between the parties. This could be a service, money or a promise. It could be a service, it could be a money or it could be a promise. Anything in return. That anything can include either a service, it can include a money or it can also include a promise, right? So it could include service, like example, the services of a teacher, the services of a lawyer, the services of a doctor, right? Money, that means we have to exchange and return with something like money. If we want some of our necessities and luxuries, we exchange it with the money. And it can be something or a promise. The promise between the parties that today you do this, in future whenever there is requirement for me, I will be fulfilling my obligation by providing this kind of service or this kind of money. So that is a kind of promise. So promise can also be termed as a greater amount of consideration or a valid consideration in terms of contract. Then coming to the third point, intention to create legal relations. The parties must intend for the agreement to be legally binding. Legally binding means suppose one party is not fulfilling his obligations in the contract, then that party can go and definitely sue him in the court of law. That means the terms of the contract are legally binding on both the parties. So that is why they say it is legally binding. That means equivalently they are applicable to both the parties. Equivalently applicable both the parties, both the offerer and the acceptor, in case of unilateral or in case of bilateral, and also for the other parties also if in case of multilateral contracts where more than three parties are involved. Everybody is equivalently legally responsible for fulfillment of the contract. So, and it is enforceable in the court of law. That means if any of the party is not fulfilling the promise made or terms made in the contract, he should be taken to the court of law. So that can be termed as an intention to create legal relations. Then coming to the fourth one, that is the capacity of contract. All parties entering into the contract must have the legal ability to do so. That means they should be of the perfect age. That is, they should not be minor, should be not unsound mind. They should be rather a rational human being, right? Have the legal ability to do so, meaning they must be of sound mind. As I said you, the person should be in his senses when he is making the contract, of legal age, that he should not be a minor and not under any legal disability. That means he should not be disqualified by the court of law. Like convicts, the persons who are treated as they have some legal implications already on them. So those parties are not said to be competent or having capacity to contract. So the persons, whoever are involved in the doing the contract or are called as a parties to the contract, they should be first not minor. They should not have an unsound mind. Rather, they should not have any legal implications or legal convictions on them before making that contract terms, right? then only they can be said that competent to contract or capacity to of parties. Then the next one is about the lawful object. The purpose of the contract must be legal and not against public policy. As I told you, there is a contract of smuggling, contract for selling goods at unreasonable price, or you can say blackmailing contract, etc. All these are not termed as a valid contracts, but rather they are the void contracts. So example here of capacity is, I take a decision of admitting minor in my partnership firm. So does a minor have a capacity of entering into the contract of partnership agreement? It is not a valid contract if we are entering into any contract with a minor who is not considered or is of a legal age. Right. Coming to the next terms of the contract, that is the free consent. So the consent of both the parties must be freely given. As I told you, they should not be under any of the any of the thing wherein they are forced to complete the terms of the contract. That is without coercion, without undue influence, without fraud, without misrepresentation, or rather with the mistake. That means they should not be taken into contract for misrepresenting the facts of the contract by doing some fraud with them. That first they will say that they will give you this much of money, but after fulfilling the obligation by one party, if the other party is telling that I will not pay you a single penny, so that can be termed as a fraud. So that can also be said that the acceptance was accepted not with a free consent. So that makes the contract again void and not valid. Then coming to the certainty of the meaning. Certainty of the meaning means the terms of the contract must be clear and unambiguous. They should not be confusing terms. Everything at the time of agreement stage itself, they should be very, very clear on to both the parties. Not to one party, but the person who is making the offer should also be clear with all the terms, and the person who is accepting or the persons who are accepting also should have no confusion relating to it, leaving no room for misrepresentation. Any of the person is not having a clarity on the facts of the terms, then they can be said to be misrepresentation of the facts, and which will make the contract void altogether, because they may state in the court of law that the terms were not clearly mentioned, they were not clearly told at the time of making the contract and binding the other party to fulfill that contract. So like that, certainty of meaning also plays a very, very important role. I can tell that I will give you a good amount of discount on this products. That good amount can be something for one party and the other party may understand it in different words. So this is something which is creating an ambiguous situation. So good amount of discount can be for one person it is different, the other person it is totally different. So when you are stating the good amount of discount, it should be stated in terms of numbers. It should be clearly told that these is the amount of discount which I'm providing while I'm giving you the goods, so that the other person has to understand it in clear sense, and if he is willing to take that offer, then he can accept it. Like that, the terms should be very, very clear in order to leave the misrepresentation or misunderstanding between the parties. Discount, it might differ from person to person. So for you, good discount might be 90%. For me, it can be 50% also. So like this, so the good amount is not a reasonable word in order to give you a proper or misrepresentation of the facts. So coming to the next point, that is the possibility of performance. The obligations created by the contract must be capable of being performed. That means, as I told you, I will bring you stars from the sky. This is something which is not possible by any of the party. So you can't say that that is the good term in order to define that it can be performed, right? So something which has to be possible in order to perform the contract, that can be said as a possibility of performance, right? If I tell you that whatever you do, I will be able to pay you whatever you ask. So is it possible? Nobody can pay that much amount what you want, what you are willing, right? So that is how the clearly statement is one and the possibility of performance is the one. Something which has to be practically possible in order to attain, that comes under the possibility of performance. And that is also one of the essential and the most essential element of a contract in order to be called as a valid contract. Coming to the next one, compliance with legal formalities. As I told you, any contract is legally binding. The definition itself states that it should be legally binding on both the parties. Therefore, there are anyhow some legal formalities which should be done or which should be fulfilled in order to call a contract as a legal contract. So, depending on the nature of the contract and the jurisdiction, certain contracts may require specific formalities such as being in writing or being registered. Like example, any company want to register itself, any company must be registered with the registrar of companies. In order to call it as a company, then it should get itself registered with the registrar of companies. So that is a legal obligation or a legal formality if a company has to get formed. In the same way, if any marriage has to be called as a legal one, that has to be registered with the marriage registrar. Like that. Examples are many wherein you will require legal formality. If you want to open a shop, and then you have to obtain the license of the particular business, what you are thinking to conduct. So that can be termed as a legal formality. So it will be based upon the jurisdiction. Jurisdiction in the sense, if you are staying in a state where you want to expand your business only to the limitations of the state, that means the area of the limitation is called as jurisdiction. It can be either at state level, it can be at the rate or at national level, it can be at the international level also. So based upon the limitation you are putting to your contract, that can be termed as a jurisdiction. Any law will work mainly on the jurisdiction basis only. That is, its limitation will be limited to either one level or it might be limited to one or two levels max to max. So that is how it can be called as in jurisdiction. So depending upon the nature of the contract and the jurisdiction, certain contracts may require specific formalities. So those formalities can differ from contract to contract, just being in writing or being registered. Right? Examples I have given you of a company who is registered with the registrar of company. Marriage registration has to be made with the registrar of marriage. These are some specific formalities in order to make any contract into a valid contract. So this is also one of the essential element in order to call a contract to be a valid contract. So now we have till now read about what are the essential elements have to be fulfilled in order to call any agreement or any contract to be a valid contract. In order to call, if any of the essential elements of or all of the essential elements are not fulfilled, then that contract can be said as a void contract. We will learn more about the void contract now. A void contract under the Indian Contract Act 1872 is one that is not enforceable by law. So it clearly states that it is not enforceable by court of law, then it can be said as a void contract. So what can be, it's treated as it if it never existed. That means it is treated that there was no such contract which was formed. There was no offer, no acceptance, nothing. Even if it was there, it is treated as it was never there, right? This means neither party can seek legal remedies for breach of contract and no rights or obligations arise from it. That means any one party cannot say that I have got a breach of contract. That means the other party has not fulfilled his obligation. No, it can't get the remedies for breach of contract, neither rights nor obligations. Nothing will arise out of it. So these contracts are said to be null and void. We say it as the common terms which we use are null and void. That means they are unenforceable. They are not having any capability to be enforced in the court of law. Such agreements can be said as the void contracts. They will be treated as the contracts which never existed in the court of law or never existed between the parties. Neither of the party will have the right to either perform or to make the obligations and rights clearly taken, right? So these are some void contracts. So some of the examples of void contract can be agreements with a minor. If you are making any agreement with a person who is below the age of 18, then that contract can be said as a void contract. Agreements based on impossible events are void. That means if I promise you that if you give me a land on the moon, I will pay you 100 crores. Is it possible to perform? No, it is not possible to perform. So the contract itself becomes void because there is impossibility for it to be performed, right? Agreement with unlawful consideration or objects are void. Unlawful consideration means if I tell you we form a contract by each other that if I provide you money, you have to kill the other person. A murder contract. Can it be termed as a valid contract? No, because the contract itself is unlawful or illegal in nature. So those contracts can be termed as the void contracts, where consideration or whatever you are giving in return is not itself having the legality in the court of law or enforceability in the court of law, then they can be termed as a void contracts. Agreements in restraint of marriage, that means which are stopping somebody to marry, because that is one of the basic rights which any human being, it comes under fundamental rights. So if we are restricting the fundamental rights of the person, then that agreements can also be said as void, are generally void with some exceptions. If suppose the exceptions can be here that if the marriage is happening in illegal terms or with the person by applying any of the things like coercion, undue influence, then that can be considered as illegal. But whereas if you are stopping somebody from marrying, that is restraint of marriage, except certain few exceptions, can be termed as generally void. That is, it is an agreement which did not existed only. It doesn't have any kind of legal capacity, right? So that can be termed as a void contract altogether. So these are some of the examples of the void contracts. Then legality of the object. For a contract to be valid, its purpose must be lawful. This is very much necessary. Contracts that involve illegal activities or violate public policy are considered void and unenforceable. Both the object of the contract and the consideration involved must align with legal standards. That means they should be written or orally mentioned in any statute or law. They should not be disqualified by the law. So they can be said as a legal standards. That means they should not be disqualified by law, rather they should be written or mentioned in any of the law which is into the action right now.